Hello everyone, today we're going to be demonstrating the external wall insulation under ProRend EIFS. So we're going to be demonstrating on this internal wall of our warehouse. Obviously it's a flat wall, sometimes on site you don't have that luxury. There's no window in it, but I have marked where a window is or should be because it is an integral part of the system, and ensuring that you're getting the system correct in around the apertures is very important. So we will go through this today. Also, there's no DPC on this wall, so what I've done is I've marked 150mm above ground level, and we're going to start with the starter track on that line. So let's take a look at what we need prior to actually starting the application of your external wall insulation system. Drainage holes in the track allow for any condensation buildup to drain out of the system. We use 2.5 metre clip-on bell cast beads for the system, which attach to the starter track. So now it's time to fix the starter track to the wall. It's important that the starter track is level, because if it's not level, then your system will run out. Let's jump straight in. Make sure you mark where your fixing points should be on the starter track. Using a level, make sure that you're happy with where it's sitting. This can be a two-man job. Once this is done, mark your fixing centres. Should be at 250mm. All the way along. So once you've drilled your holes, it's time to insert your NPK fixings. The best thing to do is to put your fixing in place and tap it in with a hammer. Be careful not to damage the upstand of the starter track. Mark the end of the starter track in line with the external corner. Using tin snips or an angle grinder, carefully cut the angle and fix into place. Use the cut to mark your return piece of the starter track and cut out the angle. The two tracks should meet flush on the external corner. As we are returning into the doorway, we need to reduce the thickness of the insulation and the starter track to 20mm. So once you've fitted your starter tracks, they're in place and they're level. Now it's time to fit your clip-on bell cast beads. The bell cast beads should be mounted on external corners and internal corners, and they should be fitted in place prior to inserting your external wall insulation system. Once your starter track is in place, your clip-on bell cowspeeds have been inserted into the starter track. Now it's time to start installing the external wall insulation system. These EPS sheets are 1 metre by 500 mil. They come in thicknesses from 20 mil all the way up to 300 mil in 10 mil increments. What we need to consider is your apertures. The insulation system can't have straight joints along the sill, the reveals and the head. There needs to be a 150 mil L shape around the apertures, and that goes for doors, and that goes for windows. So we need to look at the facade, mark out where our insulation is going to fall in relation to the windows and door apertures.
It's time to mix up the base coat. You will need it slightly stiffer for the adhesive application process. We use approximately 5 litres of water.
So once you've mixed up your base coat, you're ready to start putting your insulation on. The tools you will need for this is a level, a saw, a tape measure and a notched tram to apply the base coat to the back of the insulation sheets. When you apply the base coat to the sheets, make sure that you use a 10mm notched bat and you get a full coverage over the whole sheet. Once you've covered the sheet in notches, the board goes onto the wall. Press the board firmly against the wall. And make sure the board is clipped into the starter track. Now you're ready for your next piece. So the next stage on your next coursing would be to make sure that you bond it correctly. In this instance, I've cut the sheet trusty half, so a full sheet will span over 2 sheets. The vertical perk joints within the system can't be within 150 mil of each other for strength. So now we're coming up to our window. So we need to ensure that our next piece runs 150 above the sill line, and also 150 past the reveal, creating that L shape. So we will now cut out for the window. So once you do your reveal sections, you need to ensure there's at least 35mm width on your frame if the windows aren't coming out. The reason for that is because we use a 20mm return section. So if you account for your base coat on the back, the base coat on the front of the render, that's why you need 35mm. So if we look at this window frame, which I've marked on the inside, you can see that I've left at least 35mm on the frame to account for my ribbon insulation. Similarly, on the external corners, this is a 20mm return. So when it comes to external corners, you need to ensure that they are staggered. So my first piece will go in there, second piece in there, in, third piece on the top. We stagger the corners for strength and stability. We also stagger internal corner joints also. Now your insulation's been applied to the substrate, it's been given 24 hours with light base coat adhesive to dry. You're going to be going around checking for any high spots that might be evident on the wall and just rasting off any external corners with an insulation rasp. So once you've rasped down the insulation and you're happy that it's flat, now it's time to insert the hammer fixings. These are H1 hammer fixings. They require 35mm embedment into the substrate. The fixings coincide with the thickness of the insulation. You will need to use an 8mm drill bit on your SDS in order to fit these fixings through the insulation and into the substrate. There should be 5 fixings per sheet, which equates to 10 per square metre. So once all your pins have been put into place, it's now time to go around putting up your angle beads, your window protection beads, and potentially your stop beads. The angle beads are 2.5 meters in length. They are our noseless mesh angle beads. They're easily cut with some snips and a Stanley knife. And the window protection beads go in against your frame. Let's look at the window protection bead in closer detail.
The rear side of the bead has a self-adhesive compli band that seals against the frame. The upstand at the front of the bead profile is also self-adhesive. This section protects the frames during the render application. Using a light base coat, apply approximately 3mm to the external corners of your apertures. Offer up your mesh to the internal corners and cut to size. Press firmly into the base coat. Repeat this process for all the window and door apertures on your project. Measure the reveals and the heads ready to install the window protection beads. Cut the beads to size with snips and tightly fit into place with a trowel. Cut any excess mesh off with a Stanley knife. Apply the no-sus mesh angle beads to all the external corners of your project. Ensure each bead is plumb and upright using a level. Apply 6mm stop beads to any soffits or return details to stop the render and offer stability at the abutment. Ensure to leave a 3mm gap to allow for additional movement.
So once your beads have been applied, they've all been straightened up, you're happy, you've given it 24 hours. Next stage is to do your base coat application. Now there are a couple ways of doing this. You could put a 3mm pass on with the mesh, then a secondary 3mm pass on, and then use things like a serrated feather edge or a notch spat to find out where your low and high spots are, spat it over. Or you could use the notch spat to create your notches, 5mm notches, apply your mesh to the surface, and then come over with a secondary pass of light base coat. That's the way I'm going to be doing it. So now you've done your notch back coat, your mesh is sat on top of the notches at 5mm. You're ready to go over the top now with your butter coat. Now the light base coat needs to be a little bit wetter. What we're trying to achieve is a 1mm pass over this mesh coat, so the base coat goes in between the notches and it abolishes the mesh. You need to do this when you push on the mesh coat and it feels firm. That's when you're ready to go. If you go on too early, you're going to be moving around the mesh coat. So once you've done your secondary pass of base coat, you've gone over the top of your mesh coat with your 1mm. Let that pull in, depending on weather conditions, probably about 2 hours. Plenty of water on the surface, give it a try. Ultimately what you're looking for is a nice flat finish before you put your Colourtex uniform on. The Colourtex uniform is a 1.5mm silicate resin render. So the flatter you can get your base coat, the better your finish is going to be. So once your base coat's been applied to the insulation, it's nice and flat. You've left it for at least 24 hours to cure. Now you're going to be applying your Colourtex primer. Now the primer covers about 40 square meters per bucket. You can apply it with a roller, a paintbrush, or you can spray it on with a knapsack. Apply the primer generously to the base coat, ensuring that there's no lightness from the base coat coming through, and that will need to cure. It needs to be touch dry before you apply your Colourtex uniform. So once you've applied your base coat, you've applied your primer. Primer needs to be touch dry before you apply the Colourtex uniform over the top. The Colourtex uniform comes in a range of over 65,000 colours. When you apply this product, you need to apply it very tight. It needs to be as tight as the grain. If it's a little bit thick, you'll find that it fights against you. It's a little bit difficult to actually finish. So yeah, let's crack on. So once you're happy, we've applied the Colourtex on the primer base coat, nice and tight. Now it's time for your floating process. Now it's crucial with this to give it the first initial one, and then after that, if you do get a little bit of drag marks in it, just clean your float off from the trowel each time and then go over it with a light one.
Let's jump in. So there you have it, the full installation of our external wall insulation system. Any further questions, please contact the SAS technical team.